الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما أما بعد قال الحافظ شمس الدين الذهبي رحمه الله تعالى الكبير الثاني والخمسون إسبال الإزار تعززا ونحوه. The author Al-Hafiz al-Dhahabi, he says in his book Al-Kaba'ir, Major Sins in Islam, major sin number 52, إسبال الإزار تعززا ونحوه. Says here, إسبال الإزار is to drag one's izar. To drag one's izar, literal translation. To place one's izar beneath his ankles upon the ground, upon the floor. Ta'azzuzan. He says out of pride and out of conceit, out of haughtiness. وَنَحْوُهُ. He says, and things similar to this, and the likes, quote unquote, which has one or two meanings. The first could mean ta'azzuzan wa nahwa ta'azzuz, dragging the izar out of arrogance, out of pride, and the likes of arrogance and pride, such as extremism, such as extravagance, such as so on and so forth. Or the word nahwuhu قد يعود الضمير على الإزار يعني إسبال الإزار ونحو الإزار من الثوب والجبة وإلى آخره. One could say dragging the izar and the likes of the izar out of ta'azzuz, someone being or behaving aziz, mighty, powerful, caught up, stuck up. So he says this is the 52nd major sin, and as we have previously explained, it does not mean that these sins are in this order and in this category according to Allah and His Rasul, as we've explained several times. And we say it because it's very important. Many people, they'll misunderstand it. And I think that the 51st or the 51 sins before this one were worse than this one. That's not the case. So he says, Isbalul izar ta'azzuzan. He says, dragging your izar out of pride and out of conceit. We've explained this issue in different classes and in different lectures. Well, alhamdulillah, many people have written books on the topic, especially in the Arabic language. And there are a few books in the English language as well on the concept of al-isbal. And this issue, like many other issues today, for some strange reason, have become very controversial, extremely. And there are different groups, those who go far right, those who go far left, and just a few who remain in the middle. Whether it's the beard, whether it's the niqab, okay, the sutra, putting the hands on the chest, and the list goes on, raising your hands after the dua, the list goes on. With regards to these issues becoming major points of controversy among Muslims and non-Muslims as well. Callers, scholars, teachers, students of knowledge, laymen, far right, far left, maybe a few people in the middle with regards to the concept of al-isbal. And we hear all types of different things about this word and this concept, al-isbal, day and night. Some people say that isbal is haram. Some people say there's nothing wrong with isbal. Some people say isbal is extreme. Cutting your pants, trimming your pants, having your pants above your ankles is extreme. Some people may say it's the tradition of the people in Saudi Arabia. Some people say it's not haram to do isbal because the sheikhs in Saudi Arabia do it, and the kings do it, and so on and so on and so on and so forth. There's some people who say that you're wasting your money if you trim your pants. You're showing off if you trim your pants. You're showing the people that you're better than them. You think that you're better than them. You know, all different types of aghalit, major mistakes and errors, scientific errors, secular errors, Islamic errors with regards to the issue of al-isbal. There's some people who make this concept the staple part of their da'wah. Those who practice isbal don't follow my da'wah. Those who practice or have isbal, no matter what their understanding is, are not upon the sunnah. It's no good in them. Those who don't practice isbal, those whose pants, whose thobes, whose izars are above their ankles, higher than that, they're upon the sunnah, they're upon my da'wah. And all of these statements are all errors. They're mistakes, they're wrong. Those who go far right are wrong. Those who go far left are wrong with the concept of al-isbal. And then there's some people who may say that isbal only pertains to the izar. As it clearly says, isbalul izar. As for the thobe, no. The qamis, no. Pants, no. Sweatpants, no. Okay? Then there are those who say that the izar also pertains to the sleeve. And anything that is beneath or past the wrist is isbal. And even in the turban, the tail of the turban, and the list goes on. So what is correct with regards to al-isbal? And what is the isbal, which is a major sin? Obviously, whenever the believer hears kaba'ir, kabira, major sin, cardinal sin, anyone who has any type of iman in their heart is going to be afraid. Is going to become scared. Major sin. No one wants to fall into a major sin intentionally that has good, strong iman. Even those who make major sins like fornication, like alcohol, things like this, they do it out of weakness. They do it out of addiction. They do it because they're too cowardly to stand up to their nafs. They've been doing it for years. It's hard to get themselves off of the sin. But in actuality, they have remorse. They feel bad. They feel bad. They don't do the things because they want to, because it hurts not to do it. But no believer, no true believer is just going to go into a major sin that he knows is a major sin and not have no care and no concern. That's something that's just not going to happen. So therefore, what is the concept of al-isbal? And what is meant by ta'azzuzan? And is this major sin only confined to out of pride and arrogance, or there are other dimensions as well? To keep things brief, because we've explained the issue before in other lectures, to keep things brief, al-isbal, we read here in the footnotes, it says here, معنى الإسبال إرخاء الثوب حتى يغطي القدمين قال ابن الأعرابي وغيره المسبل الذي يطول ثوبه ويرسله إلى الأرض إذا مشى انظر لسان العرب والصحال الجوهري والنهاية. Says here that the meaning of the word isbal means to drag the thobe like a curtain, to drape one's clothes like a curtain until it touches one's feet. Until it touches one's feet. Others, they say, the musbil, the one who's practicing isbal, is the one who takes his clothes, he says, yursiluhu ila al-ard, and causes it to fall down upon the ground and upon the floor. This is the meaning of the word isbal in the traditional Arabic lexicons. The traditional, dependent upon Arabic dictionaries. What's meant by the word isbal is to drag something, is to hang it down. So therefore we see in the Arabic language nothing to do with Islam and hadith and the sunnah. The concept of isbal is dragging, putting the garment on the floor. So we see the scientific error of those who say that is only pertaining to the izar. Because what if I'm not from Yemen, or I'm not from Indonesia, I'm not from Malaysia, I don't wear izars, that's not from my culture. Obviously in the Arabic language, that's not the only meaning of the word isbal. Pants, suit and a tie, anything that a man is wearing, and it passes the feet, it's on the ground, linguistically falls under the meaning of what? Isbal. This is what's known to the Arabs. Everybody understand isbal? Rather we say, even a woman. Is a woman included in the ruling of isbal? It's a different story. But lughatan, naam. In the original Arabic language, the organic language, that's the meaning of al-isbal. As far as in al-Islam, then what is isbal? That's going to be according to the Quran and according to the Sunnah. So that's first and foremost. The concept that many people, they fall into error regarding if you do it out of pride and if you do it out of conceit. That's the only thing that's a major sin. As far as if it's the normal tradition, the normal custom, that's how pants are tailored, then it's not a haram act, let alone a major sin. There are two main views among the ulama of al-Islam. The first is the view of most of the fuqaha. Most of the ulama of past and of present, especially of the modern ulama, they say that the only thing that's haram about isbal, the only thing which could be a major sin about isbal, is what the author mentioned, ta'azzuz. If you wear the garment on the floor out of conceit and out of pride, because you have the money, because you are royal, because you can buy new pants, you can buy new clothes, and only poor people have high waters on. Only poor people have short pants on and tattered clothes that become too small, they shrink. And as far as if you have your pants or your thobe or your izar beneath your ankles, then they say there's nothing wrong with that. And it's not a haram act, nor is it a major sin. That's the first view. And the second view of those ulama who say that isbal is of two types, two categories. The first is if you do it out of pride and arrogance. If you do it out of conceit, then it is haram, and it's also a major sin. And they say the second category about isbal is that even if you don't do it out of pride, you don't do it out of arrogance, you don't do it out of conceit and being a spendthrift, they say it is also still haram. And they say, some of them, they say it's also still a major sin. Both of them are from the Kaba'ir, but one of them is worse than the other. One of them is graver than the other. Everybody clear on this? We'll get into the dalil in a second, inshallah ta'ala. First and foremost, in the tasawwur al-masail, is that we have a clear conceptualization of the issue. Those ulama here, they say isbalas of how many types? One type. In other words, if you have your pants beneath your ankle, you're going to work, that's fine. The moment you do it, you drag your pants because you think that you're better than someone else, then it's what? Haram and a major sin. But if it's just a normal custom, then they say it's nothing wrong with it. Ilbas, labas. And the second group of ulama, they say both categories are haram. And they're both from the major sins as well. But doing it out of pride and arrogance is worse than the other. And then when the man allows his pants to fall beneath his ankles, when he's standing up, not sitting down and not lying down, you can have your pajamas beneath your ankles in the bed. You can put covers on you in the bed. If it's extremely cold outside, if you're a plumber, if you work outside, that's fine. But they say in a normal condition, and you allow your pants, your thobe, your izar, anything that you're wearing on the bottom half of your body to touch beneath your ankles, they say it's haram, and it's also what? A major sin. Even if a person says, I'm not doing it out of? Everybody clear on this? So therefore, what is the correct view? That's the first question. Second question is, what is the stance of the believer when there's khilaf among the people of knowledge? And one group says it's a major sin, and the other group says that nothing is wrong with it. Thirdly is, avoiding the technicalities, what did the Prophet ﷺ do? How did he dress? Where did he wear his clothes? What was seen from his body? What is closer to cleanliness? What is closer to hygiene? What is closer to Islamic distinction? And the list goes on. Even if it isn't haram, but if it's something that's going to get me closer to Allah, and it's virtuous, and the Prophet did it, he commanded it, wouldn't common sense tell me to lift up my pants and trim my thobe? Even if the ulama of Pakistan don't say it's haram. Even if the ulama of Azhar don't say it's haram. Even if the ulama of Saudi don't say it's haram. Wouldn't a wise believer say, whoa, slow down. The Prophet ﷺ, he said the virtue of having the pants high, the thobe high. Number one. He told the companions to lift up their garments. Number two. Number three, Awn ibn Abi Juhayfa narrated in the Sahihain from his father. He says, Ra'aytu, he says, I saw the Messenger of Allah fi hullatin hamra. I saw him wearing a red mantle. And he was the most handsome man I ever saw. Hatta nadartu ila bayadi saqayhi. He says, until I saw the paleness of his ankles. Obviously, if a man sees not in your ankles, he says saqayhi, his shins, his shanks, then it means his garment is where, Safraz? No doubt, it can't be low. So no believer who's wise would say, I'm going to do something that goes against virtue. Even if it isn't haram. Even if there is khilaf. Common sense is to do what? Follow it. If the Prophet ﷺ gave virtue to it. So these are dawabit amma, very important guidelines with regards to any issue of difference of opinion among the ulama. Especially if it's an issue in which the fire is mentioned. And some of the ulama say it's a major sin. Moving forward, the author, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, قال الله تعالى ولا تمشي في الأرض مرحا. Allah says in Surah Al-Isra, he says here, ولا تمشي في الأرض مرحا. Allah Azza wa Jal, he says what? Do not walk upon the earth in marah. Literally meaning happily. Don't happily walk upon the earth. Meaning arrogantly. Happiness and arrogance are twins often. Okay? Allah, he says, do not be conceited. Do not be arrogant. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, Hadith 341, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he says, ما أسفل من الكعبين من الإزار ففي النار. He says that the Prophet ﷺ says, any part of one's izar that is beneath the two ankles is in the fire of hell. Listen carefully. ما أسفل من الكعبين من الإزار ففي النار. He says anything of the izar, any part of one's izar, beneath the ankles is in the fire of hell. This hadith, he says in the footnotes, is collected by Imam Al-Bukhari, reported by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. This narration here, among others, specifically this one, is one of the most famous, one of the most authentic, and one of the most well-known proofs and evidences for the ulama who say the isbal is what? Absolutely haram. Because the Prophet, he didn't mention what? He didn't mention conceit. He says any part that's beneath the ankles is what? In the fire. Just put that on pause until we move forward. The next hadith, hadith 342, the author, he says, وَقَالَ لَا يَنْظُرُ اللَّهُ إِلَى مَنْ جَرَّ إِزَارَهُ بَطْرًا. The Prophet also says, anyone who drags his izar out of conceit, out of pride, Allah will not look at him. Allah will not look at him. وَقَالَ, and the Prophet also says, ثَلَاثَةٌ لَا يَنْظُرُ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَلَا يُزَكِّيهِمْ وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ الْمُسْبِلُ وَالْمَنَّانُ وَالْمُنَفِقُ سِلْعَتَهُ بِالْحَلِفِ الْكَاذِبِ. The Prophet also says, 3 types of men towards whom Allah will not look on the day of judgment, nor will He purify them, and they will have a painful punishment. The first, al-musbil, those who practice isbal. Number 2, wal-mannan, those who do favors for people and then throw them in their faces and remind people of what they did for them. Last but not least, he says, and those who swear by Allah to push their product. They make lies, they make oaths, wallahi, it's the best product, wallahi, 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 and they're lying just to make money. وقال, the Prophet also says, بينما رجل يمشي في حلة تعجبه نفسه مرجل رأسه يختال في مشيته أو مشيته إذ خسف الله به الأرض فهو يتجلجل فيها إلى يوم القيامة متفق عليه. The Prophet also says, one day there was a man who was walking and he was wearing a mantle, a cloak. He was wearing something like a nice coat, a nice overcoat in our modern culture. تُعْجِبُهُ نَفْسُهُ. And he was amazed how nice it is, how fine it is, how expensive it is. He says, murajjil, and he combed his hair. His hair was nice and straight. It was meaning straight, meaning his hair was what? He was handsome, he was dapper. يَخْتَالُ فِي مِشْيَتِهِ. And he was walking and leaning and trotting and strutting. In other words, he was conceited. He was full of himself. He was full of himself. And all of a sudden, Allah Azza wa Jalla caused the earth to swallow him up. He caused the earth to swallow him up. Hadith says, so this man will be enveloped in this garment until the day of judgment, meaning punished. He'll be punished until Yawm al-Qiyamah. And this hadith is in the Sahihain. A side benefit, this hadith shows us, or it affirms punishment in the grave. The hadith does what? It affirms punishment in the grave. As we said, talib, diversifying your proofs and evidences. Quoting a text that is not talking about what? Specific issue. You're talking to someone who denies the punishment in the grave, he's already prepared an answer for the hadith of Ibn Abbas. He's already prepared an answer for this hadith about the punishment in the grave. But I guarantee that he's never what? Let alone how you're going to use it and just whip it out. Everybody understand this? When he least expect it. When you're having a debate. We explained this last week. Moving forward, he then says, وعن عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهما عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال الإسبال في الإزار والقميص والعمامة من جر منها شيئا خيلا لم ينظر الله إليه يوم القيامة. رواه أبو داود والنسائي بإسناد صحيح. He narrates from Abdullah bin Umar رضي الله عنهما that the Prophet ﷺ said, Isbal is in the izar, it's in the shirt, and it's in the turban. Anyone who drags any part of these things out of pride and conceit, Allah will not look at him on the day of judgment. And the hadith is collected by Imam Abu Dawood and by Imam An-Nasai with an authentic chain of narration. The author rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says, وقال جابر بن سليم قال لي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إياك وإسبال الإزار فإنها من المخيلة وإن الله لا يحب المخيلة أو المخيلة. It says here, listen carefully to this hadith. Jabir ibn Sulaim, he said, one day the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said to me, Iyaka wa isbal al-izar. He says, beware of dragging your izar. Because dragging the izar is from pride. And Allah does not like pride. Allah does not love pride. And that hadith is authenticated by Imam An-Nasai. Stop carefully. And you can notice one thing about the hadiths that we just read. Is that some of those hadiths say what? Pride. Conceit. And some hadiths what? They don't. This is one of the reasons why the ulama differ. Some of them, they say that the hadith or the narrations that state without pride, they say mujmala. They're inexplicit. And hadiths that mention pride and conceit are what? Explicit. They give the specific meaning. That's one way of looking at it. And other ulama, they say bel. They say rather these hadiths are what?
Separate.
Two different hadiths. With the proof that they're not narrated by the same companion, nor in the same majlis. So they say that the Prophet ﷺ, he spoke about this issue in two different times with two different what? Meanings. Don't drag your izar. Listen to this hadith. Because it says, this hadith, the fact of this hadith, it teaches us is that the sheer concept of isbal in itself is? No. He said what? He said makhyala. It says the act of izar by itself is conceit. The sheer what? The sheer act of it. Listen carefully. He says, Iyaka wa isbal al-izar. He says, beware, because it itself is from what? Conceit. And Allah what? La yuhib. So this hadith teaches us that the act of practicing izar has nothing to do with one's intention initially. And the moment you allow it to be like that, then you have fallen to conceit. Everybody understand this? So this hadith here is considered to be pinnacle and catalyst blow in the argument. For those who say that if you do it out of conceit and arrogance, then it's what? No, it's worse. And it does not mean that you're allowed to what? Do it. Even if you don't have the what? Khayr, inshallah. Moving forward, the author, rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says, he quotes many ahadith regarding the topic. Obviously, we try our best to summarize them. Listen here carefully to this hadith, which is also very important in the argument. The author, he says, وَقَالَ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ إِزْرَةُ الْمُؤْمِنِ إِلَىٰ أَنصَافِ سَاقَيْهِ. The Prophet also says, the izar of the believer is to the middle of his shin. He says the izar of the believer is to the middle of his what? His shin. And this hadith here shows us is that not only is it haram to practice isbal, but it is a virtue in having the garment what? At a higher level. Because the Prophet ﷺ says the garment of the what? Not the Muslim. He says what? The mu'min. So now, those ulama who say that izar is absolutely haram, they say there's two levels. The first level is to have your pants or your thobe no lower than your ankle. Here. They say that's wajib. It's wajib to have it at least here. They then say, and it's recommended to what? To the middle. Everybody understand this? And that's not mandatory, but that's what? Preferable. Everybody clear on this? And they say that the least that you can have it is what? Above the ankle. Everybody clear on this? And other ulama, as we've explained, they say that there's nothing wrong with what? Having beneath the ankle. Everybody clear on this or not? Moving forward, he then says, وقال أبو سعيد قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إزرة المسلم إلى نصف الساق ولا حرج أو لا جناح فيما بينه وبين الكعبين ما كان أسفل من الكعبين فهو في النار من جر إزاره بطرا لم ينظر الله إليه رواه أبو داود بإسناد صحيح. He then says, Abu Sa'id says, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, the izar of the Muslim should be at the middle of his shank, his shin. And there's no sin with regards to that which falls between the middle and the ankle. He says, and anything which is beneath the ankle is in the fire of hell. He says, and anyone who drags it out of pride, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not look towards him. وقال ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما مررت على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في إزار استرخاء فقال يا عبد الله ارفع إزارك فرفعت ثم قال زد فزدت فما زلت أتحراها بعد رواه مسلم. He says in Ibn Umar رضي الله عنهما, he narrated, when I passed by the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم and my izar was dragging, it was falling down. He says, oh Abdullah, irfa izarak. He says, lift it up. So I lifted up. He then said, zid. He said, lift it more. Fazidtu. I lifted up even more. I lifted it up even more. He says, and when the Messenger of Allah told me those words, I never allowed it to drag again. And that hadith is in Sahih Muslim. That hadith is in Sahih Muslim. Khairan, inshallah. That's a summary of the many different hadiths in the chapter. What's important is that that's what the people of knowledge say. That's what the Prophet ﷺ told us. And that's how the people of knowledge understand it. Everybody clear on this? What we don't do, what we don't condone, what we don't allow, what we do not support is for a person to become fanatical over an issue. And to make the basis of his aqidah or da'wah or minhaj the issue of al-isbal. Is the concept of isbal important? Without a question. Is it a major sin according to those ulama? No doubt about that. Me, myself, do I practice isbal? Wallahi alhamd, no, I do not. Do I allow my pants, my garment, to go beneath my ankles? No, I do not. But if somebody comes into my class and they have their pants beneath their ankle, I don't say, get out my class. Get out the masjid. You're not Salafi. You're not upon the sunnah. You're going to hell. That's something we've never seen none of our teachers doing in the Prophet ﷺ city. That's something that we never heard about any of the ulama of the past doing. The sunnah is taught, it's promoted, it's explained, instruction is given. Those who wish to take the sunnah and implement the sunnah, we say what? Marhaba. You're welcome. Ahlan wa sahlan. Those who need more time, those who don't understand, those who may not agree, those who have different cultures and madhabs, we say what? No, we don't necessarily say that best. We say what? What can we do? Allah Azza wa Jal tells the Prophet ﷺ that you're not a watcher over them. You're not a guard dog over them. You're not someone to walk around with a club and beat the people upside the head. What's important is that the imam, the student, the scholar, he does his job. And that is to teach, that is to propagate, that is to instruct, to inform, and to what? Encourage and call. But to force, to abuse, to berate, no, no, no. And the moment that you do that, you stuff the sunnah down people's throats and you abuse them and basically physically beat them to accept it, you're going to get the exact opposite. You're going to have people who follow you that have no fiqh, no knowledge, no scholarship, nothing but fanaticism and bigotry just to you. And you're going to push a lot of people away from coming close to the deen. How long were you a Muslim, ya akhi? You were born in Bangladesh. How long did you have a beard? How long was your pants above your ankles? We go back to the pictures. How long did your wife, not long ago, did she not wear hijab? And then she read a book. She came into a class. She had a beneficial friend. And she learned and she started practicing. So if Allah was patient with you, the people were patient with you. The scholar and the master, he was patient with you. Don't you have to be patient with the people as well? You compromising on your values, that's a different story. If I go somewhere and everyone has on suits and ties, and they ask me, what's the ruling on isbal, ya Sheikh Mufti? And I say, my opinion is haram. Lajus. Pride or without. That's my opinion, that's what I know, that's what I teach, that's my value. And I'm not going to compromise on that. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to force my view, what? On you. Let alone if the majority of the ulama hold the exact opposite view. Everybody clear on this? So we have to make a difference between compromising and between beating people in the head, and they are not the what? They're not the same. And there are many people, whether they're young or old, they all share one thing, and that's immaturity and lack of knowledge. And when we say immaturity, it doesn't mean that a person is like a little kid. We mean Islamic immaturity. They are not mature in fiqh and deen. They haven't studied, they haven't read, they haven't benefited enough, have enough insight to be mature. Okay? We don't do that, and they mix the two. Just because I don't walk around with a club does not mean that I compromise on my values. So let me get something straight. I'm not supposed to go to a masjid, teach the masjid, educate the people. You give me say, "Fadl, doors wide open, teach whatever you like," because their pants are beneath their ankles. And until they cut their pants and trim their pants instantly, then I can't go and teach them the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah. What absurdity is this? And this is the statement and the disposition and attitude of many callers in Canada, in the UK, in America. And there's no reason why so many people hate the sunnah. There's no reason why so many people hate the way of the Salaf as-Salih, because you've caused them to hate it. No Muslim is going to hate the way of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No Muslim. Willingly, knowingly that this is what, they're not going to hate it. It's a misconception, it's an interpretation, it's khilaf. There's no personal praise that's going to hate something that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did. How you present it to the people, how you teach it to the people, how you offer it to the people, that's a different story. Beating them upside the head with a club or beating them upside with actual ilm, with hikmah, with wisdom is night and is day. So if you yourself can't do that, if you don't have the proper knowledge, if you don't have the proper wisdom, that's fine. Don't get in the way of people who do. Don't criticize people who do. Don't be jealous and envious and talk about people who are capable and who are willing of doing that bi'idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore, al-isbal is no different than the beard or any other issue. We as Muslims should do what Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did. Muhammad said, grow the beard, grow the beard. Muhammad had a full beard, have a full beard. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, lift up the izar, lift up your izar. Muhammad's izar was high, have your izar high. But you don't have to force it upon the what? Upon the people. Let them, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, make the decision. Let them implement it. What is your job, O Imam, O student of knowledge, is to do what? Disseminate it. Offer it to the people. Teach it to the people. Encourage the people to do it. And bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, maybe the brother won't lift up his pants. Maybe it takes him, maybe his son will. Or maybe the other people will. What's your job? Is to teach, teach, teach. Spread ilm. Teach the people and clarify the misconceptions. Call them to the haqq. Those who take it. And those who what? Don't take it, don't take it. When we do this, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, hopefully we'll see better results. Allah Azza wa Jalla surely knows best.